Anyway, it's confession time, and we'd love to hear from you. If you have a confession, we would offer you a smart speaker if we actually use it. If we don't use it, you don't get the smart speaker. That's the deal. But if you got one, then you send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. 14 minutes to 6 o'clock. Today's confession comes from a supportive sister. That's okay. That's how vague it is. Okay. Supportive sister writes, Father Simon, Sister Katie Susie, and brother from another gutter. I'm actually writing on behalf of my brother, who recently confessed this burden, having been given a book commemorating his alma mater's 75th birthday, his old school 75th birthday. It's quite interesting. So sister writing in on behalf of brother. Yeah. I see. Feel free to confess on behalf of someone else if you wish. As you've probably guessed, this goes back to his school days and begins on his very first day in secondary school in County Mayo in Ireland, no relation, in the early 1980s. It's from a completely different route, by the way. Is it? My Mayo is from Matthew. County Mayo is from like a row of trees or row of yew trees or something like that. Really? Right. Okay. Just passing that on, a little bit of extra education in there. Which was not required. No. Anyway, secondary school in the early 80s. Like most 12-year-olds there, he arrived apprehensively from a small rural co-ed primary school to a reasonably large boys' secondary school, only to have the principal, let's call him Father Damien, take an immediate dislike to him. Now, I have absolute sympathy for my brother, as I had the same immediate issue in my all-girls school, which was a surprise for each of us, as neither of us had had an older sibling to justify this dislike. Anyway, this decision by Father Damien was the root of a 5-year-old battle of wills on both sides, and let's just say Father Damien did not fare too well. Father Damien decided that there were to be strict rules introduced in the school, one being no smoking. But can I just say at the beginning, actually? Go on. I'm going to give it a PG because a lot of smoking, maybe a 15 actually, and smoking is never a good idea. No, it's not. Just making that very clear. Anyway, Father Damien agrees with us. And he had a rule, and it was no smoking. Different times, as Brother Matt would say. But still. But actually still exactly the same times. Correct. One of the... So actually, Father Damien... He was right. He was right. One of the consequences was obviously the confiscation of the offending cigarettes and further disciplinary action for repeat offences. But this would only happen if Father Damien actually caught anybody smoking. This was a joy to my brother, as he viewed this as a battle that he would win hands down, as although Father Damien was the principal, he was not exactly full of logic. So the boys could easily spot him standing on the roof of the school with binoculars to see who was indeed smoking. But by the time he got to the area, it was always too late. For example, one occasion a football match was underway and a number of the players were smoking. Now, this is different times. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Over to you, because they talk like that in County Mayo. Imagine, I mean, what a scene that is. My brother was in goal, so that's okay. Yeah, because if you're leaning against the goalpost, where their goal was or something, that's... Again, always a bad thing. Father Damien, this is where it becomes another sitcom. Father Damien spotted the fact that this football match was taking place with a whole bunch of them smoking, and he screeched across the football pitch in his car to try and apprehend them. But obviously they saw it coming and they ran away. However, you'd think you could catch someone in a car. However, Father Damien was by now the colour of a large overripe beetroot. He knew my brother was one of the offenders and he chased after him, not in the car now. He chased down the school corridor only for my brother to mysteriously disappear. Father D was nonplussed and incandescent. My brother then reappeared magically behind him, nonchalantly walking past in the other direction. I know it was you smoking, mate. Me, sir? Me, sir? No, sir. My brother replied innocently and smelling of mints. How could it be me? Because you're going down there and I was up here. I'm coming from entirely the wrong direction. You've got the wrong person. I asked how he managed to do this. And my brother confessed to an event that allowed him to disappear and reappear. 1 year, it's not a Harry Potter thing. 1 year there was an art exhibition, though there is a major edit about to turn up. Okay. One year there was an art exhibition in the school gym, and for some bizarre reason Father Damien decided that the boys were likely to nick framed artwork, so posted my brother's friend, how stupid, on security duty. This role allowed him access to keys, which included a skeleton key to all of the classrooms. Think what you could have done at school with one of those. Well, this was all my brother needed. He got a lift into town. I think that's okay. Altered to keep it within criminal law. And went to get a spare skeleton key cut. This then allowed him into all of the classrooms and every room in the school, and then out through the second door that each classroom had. Hence, he could disappear and reappear at will, running around the back. So here's the thing, Father Simon, I would like to beg forgiveness on his behalf, not from Father Damien, as he's gone off to meet his maker. He doesn't really deserve it either, says supportive sister, but the boys in the years behind my brother, as on his last day there, he handed the skeleton key, over to the next group. Forgiveness is required from the year group that eventually did get caught with the key, and so the pupils' access to all homework answers and examination papers were gone forever. My brother doesn't smoke now and left the school as a well-respected, peer-appointed head prefect, much to the disgust of Father Damien. Remember, kids, smoking is a dumb habit. Just added that one. But in the same authorial voice. Does that work?
Yes.
Very, very good. Anyway, so the voice of responsibility is definitely Sister Katie Susie.
Yeah, and I think the voice of responsibility can only say one thing in response to this confession, which is not forgiven. I do think Father Damien was right. We do not support smoking in school.
Don't.
And supportive sister, she's been a good sister. Does she get the smart speaker or does her brother get the smart speaker? That's
I think supportive sister does. A brother from another country.
There was so much going on in that. The football match with the smoking, I love that. It all reminds me of that picture of Johan Cruyff having a sneaky cigarette at half-time. And decided to drive onto the football pitch to catch people and standing on the roof with your binoculars. Taking it a little farther, Father Damien. I'm going to forgive, because let he who has not used a skeleton key to try and dodge Father Damien cast the first stone.
I haven't.
And I think we all can say that we've done that at some point. So for that reason, I choose to forgive.
Forgiveness or no, text 61054. Start your message with Simon. Is the supportive sister forgiven? Yes or no? 61054 on the text. Anyway, tonight's confession came from supportive sister. A tale from County Mayo. Father Damien, no smoking. However, they smoked as they played football, and Father Damien drove across the football pitch to try and grab them and failed. Anyway, also involved skeleton keys. The people's verdict is in like this.
So Tim says, not forgiven. We had a prankster in the year above us at school. We got punished for his mischievous actions from terms gone by. Vicky says, forgiven. Forgiving the head teacher the runaround. But I feel there are other transgressions that were alluded to but not confessed here, which I do not forgive. Supportive sister mentioned the end of access to exam papers once the skeleton key was confiscated. That's another story entirely. And finally, Norman says, I forgive. What a classic. Simon, you made me spit my coffee out because I was laughing so much as you were reading. Great accents as per, which is questionable.
Well, you see, what I should have done is a County Mayo accent.
Yes, that's what the nation wanted to hear.
That is correct. But I think that might have been slightly to the wrong side of patronising, so I decided not to do it.
Right.
However, if there are some accents I can do, obviously, and if you'd like to do a confession which involves some of those accents, we would love to hear from you. confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Today's smart speaker goes to the supportive sister. Thank you. And another confession tomorrow, 5:45. It's confession time. Just a reminder, if you have a confession and if you need an inducement, how about one of our smart speakers? That'll be a very nice thing. If we use your confession, that's actually what happens. We send you a smart speaker as part of a trade-off. Today's comes from Hank. Hank sends in Tuesday's confession. Father Simon, Brother Matthew, Sister Katie Susie. This incident happened in the early spring of 1971. I was 19 years old and serving in Her Majesty's Royal Navy. This makes it a rare confession.
Yeah.
A confession from a member of the armed forces.
Because normally they don't never get through.
It's made it through the editing and strict production process. I had returned to the UK the previous August after a year's deployment to the Far East on HMS Andromeda, a Leander-class frigate. I haven't changed the names of the ships. I think it's okay. It's 1971.
Yeah, we're safe.
I was courting a young lady from my hometown when I left the UK, which would have been July 69, and during the time I was away, I received a Dear John. For the uninitiated, a Dear John is a letter from a sweetheart, usually to a serviceman, terminating the relationship. Some of the guys on the board had a Dear John waiting for them at our first port of call, en route to the Far East, which was Gibraltar, 3 days away by Royal Navy war canoe. It's like they couldn't wait to be rid of their other half. My Dear John arrived just 2 months prior to returning to the UK, so to say I was surprised would be an understatement, as her letters had been long, intimate and frequent. Being of tender years, I was 18 at the time, turning 19 in the upcoming November. It was no big deal really, and I only cried for a couple of weeks and walked around the ship in a permanent bad mood going, "Why me? Why me?" under my breath. Anyway, we move on, and later I met Gladys about October, November time in a then famous nightclub in Portsmouth called Joanna's. Again, I haven't changed the name of the nightclub, but it's 1971. Okay. Joanna's was the kind of nightclub where your feet would stick to the carpet as you walked in. Salubrious it wasn't, but what it was famous, legendary even, for meeting members of the opposite sex. Gladys was several years older than me and had come down to Portsmouth from Northumberland, heading out on the highway looking for adventure. Well, I hit it off with Gladys. We got fairly close as a couple. We were seeing each other many times a week for a couple of months. Being a Royal Navy sailor serving on a seagoing ship, it was inevitable that I was going to have to spend some time at sea. That's the nature of the gig. The ship had just undergone a very minor refit, which had kept us in harbour for a couple of months. Fate seemed to be smiling on me and my paramour. Alas, the bad news I'd been dreading finally arrived, and the ship was going out to the Mediterranean for a couple of months, and my short romance of a couple of months was to be tested. We'd only been apart for about a week when Gladys went home to see her folks over Christmas, and she'd phoned me on the ship. Yes, because mobile's not invented back then, she phoned on the ship. She'd written me lots of long and loving letters during this time. This relationship was looking good. When the ship sailed, she'd come down to the harbour to wave me off on my voyage, blew kisses and dried her eyes with a handkerchief. Everything was looking fabulous. Whilst away, we visited Gibraltar, Sardinia, Sicily and Toulon. Not relevant to this story. This is a little postcard.
Nice bit of detail.
I was writing regularly and receiving regular letters in reply. As the time of our impending reunion grew ever nearer, I was filled with anticipation, not a little hope, that our relationship could be moving on to the next level. Moving in together, marriage, kids maybe. In my head, I'd already named them Horatio and Nelson. After... I don't need to finish that sentence. After Nelson, Horatio. Into Portsmouth Harbour we sailed after 2 months away, and as soon as I could, I was ashore and heading into town to meet Gladys. We met up and she asked if I wanted to go for a meal. I thought, well, this is it. Here we go. Family bliss starts right here. We went to a very expensive Chinese restaurant in town, and although she was quieter than normal, I put that down to nervousness because we hadn't seen each other for so long. We had a slap-up meal, all the courses, all the trimmings, best wine. I think we might even have had champagne, very rare for me. Anyway, it was very, very expensive. We had just about finished our meal when she leant in close. I followed suit and leant towards her, expecting a kiss. My eyes were half closed in anticipation of our lips meeting, our tender lips. My lips slightly parted, waiting for the kiss. "I've met someone else," she whispered.
Well, lovely voice. Voice of an angel, Gladys. Yes.
What did she say? Says I stand beyond words.
I've met someone else.
I've met someone else while you've been away. He's called Graham and he's got a sports car.
Oh, well, he would.
Well, I was gobsmacked. I couldn't think of anything to say except, "Oh, I'm just going to the toilet." Anyway, once I was in the toilet, I was sitting there asking myself, why would she choose a restaurant to tell me? Why couldn't we just got it over with in a bar, far less expensive? And in those far from enlightened days, Father Simon, before equality and equal pay, it was rightly or wrongly expected that the man would be paying for the night out. Well, blow that, I thought. Getting dumped and then being stuck with the bill too. Stuff that for a game of soldiers is what I said out loud in the cubicle.
Yeah.
So I exited via a fire escape instead.
Okay.
And went round the back and then surreptitiously round the front, and I peeked into the dining area. Brenda was just finishing off her dessert wine
Gladys, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
Brenda was on a different table as from what we remember.
I thought I'd changed them all. Sorry, Brenda. Brenda. That's why she had a bad voice, because she was pretending to be. Oh, best laid plans.
Yeah.
Gladys. I think that's who it was.
Yes. Gladys.
Was just finishing off her dessert wine, seemingly nonplussed at the bombshell she just dropped on me. So to my shame, I just thinned out, which is naval term for leaving, getting out of Dodge, disappearing. I never bumped into Gladys again,
Gladys.
nor did I ever go back to that restaurant. I'm asking for forgiveness from Gladys. I'm sure that's who it was, for thinning out, sticking her with the bill, which I think came to 3 figures, which back in the day...
3 figures?
Oh my
and possibly
gosh.
the Chinese restaurant, if Brenda was unable or unwilling to stump up for the meal, we'd have been back into the classic washing up scenario. Imagine that, like it happens in the movies. Anyway, I throw myself on your mercy. Throw yourself in the mercy. Sister Katie Susie, what do you say to Hank, who is definitely in trouble?
Well, I say, Hank, you're not forgiven. I understand that's a really tricky conversation to have, but at least Gladys, she was willing to have that conversation in person. She could have sent you a letter. She could have done it over the phone, but she had the guts to tell you in person.
Yes.
And that's a lot of money to leave someone with the bill for. So, Hank, you're not forgiven.
A brother from another guy.
Well, there's 2 things here. One, I'm obviously going to forgive Hank. Who goes out for a meal to dump someone and then expects the other person is going to pick up the bill?
Well, Gladys.
Well, clearly
Brenda.
Gladys did. Well, absolutely disgrace. However, I'm not going to forgive this Chinese restaurant that's charging 3 figures for a meal for 2.
Yes, but they-
insane.
They were...
What's in these spring rolls?
They pushed
Dessert
the
wine,
They pushed the boat
champagne.
out. They had fizzy wine and
They have
everything.
fizzy wine?
Yes.
3 figures? Please. No.
You're going out for a meal tonight, aren't you?
If that comes to 3 figures, I'm going out the fire exit.
Okay, people's verdict. Do you forgive Hank, yes or no? It'd be interesting to see how this one splits. Forgiveness, yes or no? On the text 61054, start your message with Simon. You can email simon@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. However, first of all, the people's verdict is in. On tonight's confession from Hank, who was in the Navy, who then got dumped by Gladys / Brenda.
Yeah.
But only after they'd gone for a very, very expensive meal. And it does appear as though Gladys had to pick up the tab or go washing up. Here's the people's verdict like this.
So Jane in Worthing says, totally forgiven. Gladys acted totally with malice aforethought and deserved what she got. But Sarah says, not forgiven. I know that it was a very expensive bill, but Hank is partly to blame for that with his food and drink order. It was cruel to leave Gladys to pick up the bill. But Tracy in Stoke says, first of all, happy anniversary.
Oh.
Secondly, Hank is forgiven. I'm with Matt, who goes to a restaurant to drop that bombshell. Gladys, stroke Brenda, deserved to pay for the bill, having broken his heart.
Your confession, please. And obviously, Hank gets the smart speaker.
Yes, he does.
And if you send us yours and we use it, then you get the smart speaker. Confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. That's where you send it. Drive time. Confessions on the way. If you have a confession for us, you know that we would love to hear it. And if we actually use your confession, well, you get a smart speaker. That's the deal. Today's comes from Lord Doofus.
Oh,
So, thank you very much, Lord
Yeah.
Doofus, for sending in today's tale. Greetings, Father Simon, Brother Matt, and Sister Susie Katie. I'm sure that for you 3, the celebrity lifestyle comes as second nature.
yeah.
Public recognition, requests for autographs, invitation to glamorous showbiz parties.
Oh,
But
Always.
for we humbler beings, such exaltation is something that we can only imagine and read about in Hello magazine. Some years ago, I had a friend and neighbour who was the musical director at a prestigious summer school held on the premises of a very exclusive school. This culminated in a concert where the students could demonstrate their skills, and we're talking classical music here, opera singing, and the like. Lord Doofus in brackets there puts Scala, close brackets. Oh,
of course.
Right, thank you for
Great
narrowing
feature.
it down, because I wasn't quite sure what you were talking about. This was also very much a black tie-do with picnics on the lawn during the interval. You get the picture. Anybody who was anybody was invited. Despite us being nobodies, the aforementioned musical director and neighbour invited my wife and I to attend as his guests. I mean, wow. Not just joining him and the other dignitaries in the royal box, but to partake of the uber-posh picnic on the lawn. When the day came, the weather was perfect, warm, still, and ideal for the evening's entertainment. So all glammed up, myself in my dinner jacket, my wife in a new frock and hat, off we jolly well went. This was quite a big do, and the traffic built up as we neared the school. After entering the grounds, cars were being directed off the main drive into narrow cul-de-sacs with grassy parking spaces on each side. We followed directions and nipped out of the slow-moving queue and into an empty space. We exited the car and I straightened my trousers. My wife adjusted her hat in preparation for strolling up to the school. However, at this point, a fellow emerged from the adjoining car and said, "I say, you really can't park there, you know." Despite his rather patronising tone, I politely inquired as to the reason for this assertion. "Well, because we have friends coming and I'm saving that space for them. They're stuck in traffic, that's all." Perhaps it was unreasonable of me, but I felt absolutely no inclination to move, and so I indicated that I had no intention of struggling back into the queue of cars.
I wonder how he indicated that.
On the off chance that there was a space further down. "But our friends are joining us for a picnic," the man shouted. I assured him I hoped that he and his friends would enjoy the picnic, but I still wasn't moving, and off we went. Now, unfortunately, no sooner had we joined the VIP group at the school, but I realised that I'd left my reading glasses in the car. Back I went, and Chummy started ranting again. To this day, I don't know where the words came from, but I stared him in the eye and said, "Look, you clearly don't know who I am, but to save you any further embarrassment, why don't you Google Lord and Lady Glenfield, 3rd Earl of Kirkcaldy? All right with you?" I rolled my eyes. "The Glenfields are not for reparking," I said.
That's on the motto, isn't it?
I turned on my heel and stalked off, leaving him speechless and looking confused. I knew we were safe because there's no reception in the field. Anyway, when we entered the Great Hall for the concert, I spotted him out of the corner of my eye, and since we were seated with the VIPs in the Royal Box, his confusion clearly deepened further. From time to time during the evening, I realised he was staring in my direction, obviously wondering what on earth the Earl of Kirkcaldy was doing here, and how come he didn't recognise me. Well, since there was a bit of ado for we VIPs post-concert, Chummy had gone when we returned to the car, so he may be wondering about my identity to this very day. Father Simon, I seek forgiveness not for refusing to move, but I feel I was totally justified, but for pretending to be someone important when actually I'm really not. I suspect that his evening was spoilt by the distraction of pondering on my identity, and it is for that I seek forgiveness. And impersonating aristocracy is probably a capital offence or something similar. So do us a favour and forgive me. My wife has just read this and tells me that I should also seek forgiveness from all in the Royal Box. It seems that since she was the designated driver for the return home, I may have rather overindulged with champagne during the picnic break. And despite her frequent assault on my ribs, this resulted in me dozing off during the second half and snoring rather loudly. So, Lord and Lady Doofus, clearly, with an aristocratic faux pas, or maybe just sticking it to the man. What do you say, Sister Katie?
I say you're forgiven, Lord Doofus. Firstly, flattered by the fact that you think that I live a celebrity lifestyle.
Yeah. Yes.
Slight stretch. You absolutely can't save a parking space. That is not a thing. And you were right to make the most of the champagne. I would have done the same. So you are forgiven.
Okay, brother from another...
Quite right, Katie, saving car parking spaces, that is not a thing. No one does that. No, clamping down on that. And pretending to be a member of the aristocracy just to get a parking space, that's fine. And also snoring during the opera, that's also fine. So I am going to forgive.
People's verdict, please, do you forgive Lord and Lady Doofus? On the text 61054, start your message with Simon. 61054, first word is Simon. Earlier, an aristocratic-themed confession from Lord Doofus, who did actually claim to be Lord and Lady Glenfield, the 3rd Earl of Kirkcaldy, just so he can avoid not moving his car. Yeah. Which actually probably was... my guess is that people are going to go, all right, Lord Doofus, fair enough. What do they say?
You'd be absolutely right. Everyone is forgiving tonight. Stephen Clacton says, forgiven. Saving a parking space in the manner described is so not on. Sarah says, definitely forgiven. You can't save car parking spaces like that, nor can you put names on chairs in pubs or Bagsy Sun lounges. Jog on, losers. And Vicky says, forgiven for the simple reason that we're all well schooled in the art of queuing in this country, and saving a space for your friend is a clear no-no in this situation. None of this one rule for you and another for the rest of us. I say well done.
Okay, all right, that's an interesting bit of social commentary. Thank you very much. And if you have a confession, we would love to give you, just hand over for nothing, give you one of our smart speakers. Send yours to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Okay, well, it's confession time, which means we're going to give away another smart speaker. Let that be an enticement to you. If you've got a confession waiting to go, we'd like to hear from confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk, because it does have its own email pigeonhole. All the emails go in the particular pigeonhole. That's responsibility of Sister Katie Susie, who gets... You do that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I do the sorting.
And this one has got through, and this one is today's recipient of our smart speaker. It comes from Dr. Kiss Kiss. Thank you, Dr. Kiss Kiss, Father Simon and the Kissing and Collective. This tale goes back to the winter of 1988, when I was studying medicine at a small polytechnic in the Fens. By the way, he means Cambridge.
Okay.
Help me. Cambridge humour. However, it's only recently that I've become aware of my need to seek forgiveness for this event, which I will now tell you about. Myself and several friends had decided to use our limited holiday allowance, not that limited, to go skiing. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So it was that myself, Tom, Dick and Harry's boyfriend Loopy Lou found ourselves in a moderate hotel in Andorra. I guess that's quite a nice hotel in Andorra. On the bus up to the resort, we surveyed our fellow skiers. There's a group of girls from up north, a bunch of likely lads from the East End of London, and our drunken tour rep, Jez. We were not well off. I think you were.
Well.
And after a hard day skiing, we would spend our evenings in the hotel bar drinking the very average house red, which was probably very nice, and playing the board game Trivial Pursuits. So for those who don't remember this time, Trivial Pursuit was a popular general knowledge board game which involved throwing a dice to move around a board shaped like a cartwheel, answering questions on the 6 topics. Do you remember these?
Yes.
History, geography, art and literature, science and nature, sport and leisure, as well as the dreaded entertainment. Questions on the spokes of the wheel earned you a wedge, commonly known as cheeses. When you got 6 cheeses, you then went to the centre of the wheel, and the opponents were allowed to choose the topic for you to answer. If you got this question right, you won the game.
Yes, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, as the week progressed, our enjoyment of the evening games was increasingly marred by the East End likely lads who took to spectating on our games. When we got a question wrong, they would tut loudly and make unwelcome comments. You're medical students, you don't know that. You go to Cambridge University, you can't answer that question. Blimey. After several nights of this unpleasant barracking, the inevitable happened and a challenge was issued for a match between the medics of Cambridge and the students of the University of Life, as they liked to style themselves. On the evening of the game, there was a bit of nervousness in our camp, and we eschewed the house wine at supper. The reputation of our esteemed institution was at stake. Of greater concern was the condition of one of our team. Harry had not skied that day. He had not looked at his best either and appeared tired and emotional. We were relying on him as he was by far our best player. The East London lot were sounding typically cocky. All right, you lot, ready to find out what real brains look like? General knowledge, you know, is not about fancy stuff you learn in a book.
Except it is.
Anyway. Drunken Jez had agreed to act as question master and appeared for once to be relatively sober. Word of the match had filtered out and the girls from up north had not headed out for the nightclubs as had been their practice, but looked on with real interest. Their presence seemed to have enticed a few local Andorran ski guides into the bar, and so it was that there was a moderate crowd around the table as the game began. The coin was tossed, we lost. The East End lot started. I got a couple of quick questions right, then picked up a history cheese before failing to know the capital of Indonesia. It was our turn. We set off and soon had a couple of cheeses. We needn't have worried because Harry seemed to be on sparkling form, even forcefully overruling my conviction that Achilles was Helen of Troy's lover. Anyway, this has not been discussed before. And so our run continued, and after about 20 minutes of faultless answers, we had 6 cheeses and headed to the centre. Who played movie sidekick to Hopalong Cassidy? Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed a line. Hang on. We headed for the centre. Of course, they chose entertainment for the topic for us.
Yeah.
So the question is this. Who played movie sidekick to Hopalong Cassidy, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers and John Wayne? That's a tough one. Silence. a typically impossible entertainment question. Then Harry pipes up, I think it was George Gabby Hayes. The right answer. We had won the game in a single turn. The East End lot looked stunned. The Northern girls looked modestly impressed, and the Andorran ski guides looked relieved that the game was over quickly and they could resume their attempts to entice the Northern girls out for the evening. We, meanwhile, were doing our best not to look smug, and failing, and adopted a dignified yet serious pose. Thank you for the game, lads. Good fun. I think we're going to go out for the rest of the evening. Maybe you should practice among yourselves next time. They didn't answer. We all subsequently qualified as doctors, went our separate ways, and I lost contact with my skiing companions. But for many years I've dined out on this triumph, using it to instill into my children and anyone else who would listen the value of a university education. I might have continued to do so had I not recently met up with one of our party. As we reminisced on our student days, I reminded him of our triumph. He was silent for a while and then said, "You do know that Harry cheated, don't you?" "What?" I said, "Excuse me?" "Yeah, he sat up all night and learnt every answer to every question of the Trivial Pursuit Genius Edition." And is that cheating?
Yes.
I don't think it is cheating.
I was looking at the answers.
I mean, come on.
Anyway, Father Sound, I seek forgiveness on behalf of myself, my team members, and my alma mater for winning, not by using our superior general knowledge to see off the East End lot, but that other great medical student skill, the last-minute cram. So Dr. Kiss Kiss would like the forgiveness, please. I guess this all depends on whether you consider that cheating or not. I think Sister Katie thinks it is.
Yeah, that is absolutely cheating, because you know what questions are going to come up and you've prepared exactly the answers to those. So not forgiven, Dr. Kiss Kiss. That's cheating.
That's
No.
a brief answer. She's worried about time.
Okay, keep it short, Matt.
Brother from another gutter.
Okay, we all remember those Trivial Pursuit boxes. They were huge, and they had 6 questions on each card. There's no way you're going to be able to remember. He was revising. He wasn't cheating. He was revising. Definitely not cheating.
Cheating.
Definitely. I mean, I had to be honest when I heard it was a medical student confession. Only second to military confessions in definitely not getting on. But yeah, no, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, well, it's the people's verdict then. That's what that is. Do you forgive Dr. Kiss Kiss, yes or no? Was that cheating? I think that's what it boils down to. Or did you just take an instant dislike to Dr. Kiss Kiss? On the text, please, 61054. First word is signed. Dr. Kiss Kiss's confession is about cheating at Trivial Pursuit. Or was it cheating? Anyway, the people's verdict is in. Here we go.
So Kirito from Peckham says, I forgive. It's not cheating, it's studying. That's the purpose of the game. I can't fault him. Jackie says, I forgive Dr. Kiss Kiss. I did exactly this many years ago as I was determined to beat a guy that I liked at Trivial Pursuits. However, I lost. We did get married, though. But not forgiven, finally. It might not be outright cheating, but it's definitely an unfair advantage from an unimpressed Tony in the East End.
Thanks, unimpressed Tony. If you have a confession we would love to hear from you, then send it over the weekend. We could win you a smart speaker next week. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.